Hello and welcome to Tranquility Through Life's Natural Beauty. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. And thank you to those of you watching this back later. Nice to see you. Oh, I have my awesome friend in Texas, Jan. Do go and check out Texas Jan's channel and see what she's getting up to there. So yes, do go and check out Texas Jan, and you'll find her on her channel. And her channel is Texas Jan 0057. So do go and have a look there. And don't forget, while you're there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and say hello. So Texas Jan, such an awesome viewer of mine, and Jan, I so like what you're writing in the comments. I learned so much about you and things that have happened to you, so thank you so much for that. Let's start straight away by let's do Quote Corner for Friday. So let's have a look at that. And don't forget, on this channel, I have a whole playlist of full videos of different quotes and sayings. And I also have in my, I think it's called Fun Videos or something like that playlist, you can also find funny signs. If you like funny signs, I do whole videos of funny signs. If you just want to see quick ones, then look at my shorts, and I have just posted a couple more on there, so do take a look at that. And if you go on my main channel, New Beginnings, My Everyday Life in Rural Cyprus, you will see I have put up a funny community post. I'm asking you a question, but it's a funny question on my community post on New Beginnings, My Everyday Life in Rural Cyprus. So do go and take a look at that. Something we saw, and I'm asking you about it. Okay, let's begin today with this. So today for story time, I'm going to continue reading another little bit of the book I'm reading to you. And it's a book I got where I lived in England, which was Wallington in Surrey, South London, but on the green suburbs, let's say. And this was a book I found where it was someone who lived there as a child, and they're talking about the history and growing up there. So this was the author's home when she was a child, and the house is called the Myrtles, which is 38 Park Lane. And I did mention, I think last time, that I lived in two different houses in Wallington, and when we were looking for a second house, I did go and look at, I can't remember which number house it was. I must see if I can find that out somehow, but we didn't buy it because it had bomb damage to it. But this is the house where she lived, and most of the houses in that area are Victorian and Edwardian, which is why I love the houses so much. One of the houses I lived in was Edwardian and one was Victorian. So carrying on reading where we got up to. If you want to see past bits of this story, then this is why I play these little interludes to you, so you can go back to all the past lives, look for that little interlude picture to come up, and you can hear other parts of the story. It continues. Looking back, I realised that we were unshamedly members of the comfortable middle class living at the Myrtles in Park Lane, which was a detached house covered by rosy Virginia creeper, with 4 bedrooms, front and back hall, drawing room, dining room, kitchen, scullery, bathroom, etc., plus a conservatory, an aviary, tool shed, outside lavatory for the gardener or workman. The front garden was edged by privet hedges with gravel path and flower beds, and the back was largely lawn with fruit trees and a rockery. Father hated gardening, so periodically grandfather would arrive together with old Goody, and between them they would carry out some piece of improvement to please mother. We also had a grand swing under the rose-covered pergolas. Our neighbours consisted of elderly couples on both sides, whom we had to be very careful not to annoy by playing noisy games or throwing balls over the fence. When this did happen, I would have to go and knock at Mrs. Slade's front door and request permission to retrieve the ball. She was a very pleasant lady with no children of her own, and would often invite me to have a glass of homemade barley water with a slice of mandarin cake before returning home. Those were the days when people took great pride in keeping themselves to themselves. I cannot remember a single occasion when mother entered the house for a social event such as taking tea, though she remained on good terms with the neighbours throughout the 40 years she lived at the Myrtles. Our front door was notable for its very fine stained glass panels, and of course in those days there were cream lace curtains and green Venetian blinds at the windows, later to be replaced by more modern chintz hangings, as the interiors were redecorated in white paint instead of old brown. In the hall on the leather-top table stood our black telephone, one of the first in the district, and from my earliest days I can remember being trained to answer it correctly and politely, as it was quite rare to be on the phone then. Coal fires were lit throughout the winter in the dining room and kitchen, and also in the drawing room at weekends. But of course there were no such extra comforts as gas fires or electric fires for the chilly spring or summer evenings. Probably the extra clothes we all wore helped to keep us warm, although I do not recall ever worrying about being cold. We were, however, very glad to take advantage of the growing fashion for woolen pullovers and cardigans to be worn by both sexes. Mainly, only schoolboys wore jerseys as additions to their grey flannel suits, while older men wore waistcoats. Stone hot water bottles and bed socks were relied upon to keep one warm on frosty nights. Housework at that time was quite hard in the absence of modern vacuum cleaners and electrical polishers, since all floors had to be kept clean by carpet sweepers or by throwing used tea leaves on the floor and sweeping these up with long stiff brooms. Every room had to be turned out once a week, involving great movements of chairs and furniture. In our drawing room, this was rather complicated by mother's enormous collection of Goss china and miniatures of all kinds, kept in the glass-fronted cabinet and only to be dusted by her. In actual fact, they were so miniature that she could, I suspect, only blow on them and dare not risk picking many of them up. We always had a maid living in, plus a little elderly widow, Mrs. Nichols, from Hatbridge, which was not far, who arrived by bus every Monday morning to help with the washing, although of course all the bed linen was sent to the laundry. There was a large copper, a circular metal container set in a brick structure, under which a small fire burned to heat the water. That was out in the scullery, where most of the washing would be done in a hot, steamy atmosphere, especially on a wet day when the doors and windows had to be kept shut. After drying the washing out on the line in the garden, the rest of the day and evening would be spent on the ironing, and the garments would then be folded and arranged on the wooden airing rack, which was pulled up to the kitchen ceiling over the heat from the fire. Heavy items would also have to be put through the iron mangle, which stood out in the garden shed and involved a nasty cold job on wintry days. I should also add that the ironing had to be done by 2 flat irons, which were heated on the kitchen range or gas cooker. It all seems very far away from these days of drip-dry materials, washing machines and spin dryers. On the subject of maids, names of those who I can remember include Martha, Blanche and Jenny. Our dear and faithful Jenny, who stayed for 20 years and waited hand and foot on Mother during her many illnesses. She came from a very large and poor family in Norfolk and had been sent away to a mansion in Eaton Square, London, to train as a housemaid. During this period, however, she fell from grace by getting into trouble with a policeman. After being dismissed and having the baby in some kind of charitable institution, she came to us as a general maid, but her disgrace was kept secret for 20 years, and we children never had the slightest suspicion that Jenny had in fact a daughter of her own who was being brought up by the grandmother in far away Norfolk. Ooh, maybe we'll carry on with that next time. So as I say, if you want to just hear my story on Fridays while I'm reading that, then do look for the little interlude bit of film, and then you know where to find the story, because I don't always do things in a set order on my lives. So look for that little interlude film clip and you can find the place you want. Okay, let's go on to our next thing for today, and let's do, if I can find it, this. So, quiz today. As you know, I keep changing the subject of the quiz, so you'll find things you're interested. Texas Jan says, love hearing you read. It's good practice for my brain to keep focus and speak properly. And I know so many people watch my lives because they say, we just listen because we love your accent, which gave me the idea for reading things in my live. I love stories of past, and on this channel I've also got a playlist where I read my nan's autobiography. She hand wrote it, and I've nearly finished reading them. You don't see me reading them. It's pictures of my nan, and I'm reading it. I narrate over the top, and I'm reading different chapters of her story. I'm fairly near the end of reading it, but you're still quite a few behind to where I've filmed. So I suggest with that, if you look it up, I think it's called Autobiography of My Nan Patricia Joyce Hurst. I think it's called that in the playlist. And I suggest you start from the beginning, because each time I start, I just carry on where I left off. So it might not make sense. So that's quite good if you're into old history and how people lived then. And she lived mostly in London. So times past in London. So on to our quiz. And today we're going to do topic of discoveries. Discoveries. If you're watching live, you can answer in the chat, or if you're watching this back later, see if you can come up with the answers before I read them out. I'm going to read all the questions first, and then I'm going to go back and answer them all, reminding you of the questions. So the first question is, which mathematical living in ancient Greece shouted Eureka when he was in his bath? Jan says Nan a term for grandmother. Yes. Not either side particularly. I'll read it out because I know some of you listen to my lives rather than reading. Jan says, is Nan a term for either grandmother or particular to one side or another? It's not particular to one side or the other. Nan is short for nanny, and that's not to be confused in England, where child carers that came and lived in your house were nannies. That's not the same sort of nanny, and that's quite confusing because you can employ someone that's not a relative, an employee, to look after children in your home. They are also called nannies, but you can call your grandmother nanny, and you have nanny and granddad is the most common. Grandmother is used. That's really what is mostly used. Nana. Some people do say nana, not so common. It's either nanny or grandmother. But you can have different terms or call them different things, such as, I think my mum asked my nan what she wanted to be called. They normally say what they would like to be called, and I think she said nanny. And that's my mum's mum. And then because we learnt nanny, it was nanny and granddad on both sets of grandparents. To distinguish the two, the other one was really nan, whereas this one I'm talking about is nanny, really. I just say nan. So this one was nanny because we saw her all the time. She didn't live too far away. So nanny. And then the other one, which my dad's one we didn't see very often, was nan and granddad. And to know the difference, we called her Nanny Wowo because she had a dog at that point. And as a child, I called dogs Wowos. I think we were just brought up saying that, Wowos for dogs. So Nanny Wowo, she was always Nanny Wowo. Jan says, I never had grandparents, but my husband's grandmother on his mum's side was very formal. Right. I knew my great nan, which was my mum's mum. So my great grandmother I knew until I was about 3 or 4, and I've told many stories about my memories of that. Okay, so back to the quiz. Which mathematician living in ancient Greece shouted Eureka when he was in his bath? The second question. Which nationality was Isaac Newton? Which nationality was Isaac Newton? Texas Jan saying we called her grandmother. His dad's mum was called Oma, which is German. In Cyprus, grandmother is Yaya. So there's lots of, and Papu is grandfather. So Papu is grandfather, Yaya is grandmother. The next question is, in which century did the first cars with petrol engines appear? Ooh, that's an interesting one. In which century did the first cars with petrol engines appear? Very interesting. Okay, next question. Michael Faraday was an American scientist. True or false? Michael Faraday was an American scientist. True or false? Hopefully, if you were American, you would know if that is true or false. The next question, what letter S, was used to drive the earliest cars? So something beginning with S was used to drive the earliest cars. What is the word beginning with S? Oh, don't you hate it when your water's warm? Well, our temperatures have gone sky high. And a cool day here is 40 degrees centigrade. 40 degrees C is a cool day here right now. Everything, you just touch a table and it's boiling hot. Boiling hot. The next question. Jan saying petrol cars, the 1800s. Carl Benz was a pioneer of the motor car. True or false? True or false? Carl Benz was a pioneer of the motor car. True or false? Yes, Jan said about petrol cars, they were around in the 1800s. There were also electric cars before any other type of car. Yes, electrical cars. The electric cars are nothing new. Nothing new. Nothing new. The next question. The letters spicy hits can be rearranged to give the name of what type of scientist? SPICYHITS. What type of scientist? The next question. Who came up with the theory of relativity? Who came up with the theory of relativity? Of course, if you're playing this back later, you can always pause and think of your answers. The next question. Was the wheel invented more than 3,000 years ago? Was the wheel invented more than 3,000 years ago? Jan saying the person who came up with the theory of relativity was Einstein. Was the wheel invented more than 3,000 years ago? Yes or no? I'll go through the answers in a minute. What letter M did Michael Faraday help to understand better? What letter M did Michael Faraday help to understand better? So what did he do? Yes, on wheel. And the next one, two more. Can you hear the goat bells? You probably can't. The goats are literally just outside my window. Oh, that one's well pregnant. Oh, that one's bulging sideways. You probably can't because I've got my fan right here and everyone says, don't worry, you can't hear the fan. So I doubt if you can hear the goats. What nationality was Nicholas Cugnot, who built the first car? Nicholas Cugnot. If you can hear the goats. Oh, cool. You'll hear them more if they climb up my fence and start eating the shrubbery because they snort then. I'm glad you can hear the goats. One of my favourite sounds. And do you know what? You see I'm looking at them. I can't not look at them when they come by. I still love that. If I hear the goats, I have to look at them. By what three letters does deoxyribonucleic acid is known? Let me type it in for you. Oh dear. Let's type it in for you. Oxrib on nucleic. There we go. I think I've spelt it right. If I missed a letter out. Yes, I have. There we go. No, it's saying it still doesn't like the word. It probably doesn't know it. mononuclearly. There we go. Putting it in the chat. So by what three letters is that acid usually known? Ooh. Do you know that one? I didn't know that. Okay, let's go through the answers. Jan's put some answers there, so you'll see how many you got right there. The first question was, which mathematician living in ancient Greece shouted Eureka when he was in his bath? And the answer to that is Archimedes. Archimedes. Keep your own score and see if you beat your score from last week. The next question was, which nationality was Isaac Newton? Isaac Newton was English. English. The next question was, in which century did the first cars with petrol engines appear? And it says here 19th century, and Jan says 1800s. Well done, Jan. The next question was, Michael Faraday was an American scientist. Is that true or false? And the answer is false. He was English. The next question was, which letter S was used to drive the earliest cars? And it was steam. Steam. You'll probably hear those goats in. Carl Benz was pioneer of the motor car, true or false? And the answer is true. The letters spicy hits can be rearranged to give the name of what type of scientist? And the answer is physicist. Ooh, there's one of my cats there. The next question was, who came up with the theory of relativity? Jan said Einstein, and it was indeed Albert Einstein. Well done, Jan. Was the wheel invented more than 3,000 years ago? And the answer is yes. What letter M did Michael Faraday help us understand better? And the answer is magnetism. What nationality was Nicholas Cugnot, who built the first car? And the answer was French. I didn't know his name, but I did know France was the place. And the last one, by what three letters is the word I typed in the chat? The acid usually known, and it is DNA. So if, like me, you didn't know what DNA stood for, you now have the word in the chat. Okay, very good. Hope you enjoyed that. And we're going to go on to, let's do shout out of the day. So today's shout out is going to be for Anne Dale's Homestead. So do go and check that out. I'll just type it in. And as I say, links these days, most of them are the channel name with a little @ symbol at the front. If you can't find a link, then obviously just always type in the name of the channel. Okay, let's move along. What's the time? I have to watch because I've got to go and do more buckets in my garden. I only give myself an hour maximum off. So let's do this. Okay, so let's have a look what's on my question cards today. The first question is, name something good about getting older. Ooh. So Name something good. If you're in the chat, see if you can think of something. If you're not in the chat and you're watching this back later, do put something in the comments below. I love to read your answers. So name something good about getting older. I wouldn't say wiser. They say as you get older, you get wiser. Yes, you do get wiser. Well, not working. Not working. That's got to be a good thing, hasn't it? Not working. Because of my age group, things weren't available, and now they are available. So, for example, not that I work now, but nowadays people can work from home. So older people now might now have that option that they don't have to wait to retirement to move to another country or live a different life. Because dependent on your job, a lot of jobs you can now work from home. So I would say that. Jan says, I no longer want to acquire things. I live more simply. I would agree with that. There's just that sudden line. We've got friends that still don't get how we got rid of so much stuff before we moved here. We barely bought anything with us. I bought mementos and things like that. Furniture, I didn't bring much at all. I can't remember the size of it, but we had a very small walk-in like storage room, not container, storage room that Mike stayed in England and sorted out packing up the house and putting everything in there. And I came out here and started setting things up here. And there was a month, it was also because Mike had to work notice for a month. So I came out here and set the ball rolling with things here. And he was back there and he used this like a little walk-in one, not like a great big room one. It was tiny. And he packed a few things up there. So that limited us because we didn't want to spend lots of money on like this storage container because obviously my house was selling. And we were talking about this the other day, funny enough, when we then had the, you know, you get a container that it gets put on the ship and then gets brought over here with all your stuff in. Mike ordered what size, and they said, oh no, your stuff won't fit in there because you have to briefly say sort of if you have sofas or pianos or those kind of things. And they said, no, that wouldn't all fit in there. And he said, well, it will fit that size because this storage container I've got is even smaller. But yeah, there is literally this change. As I say, my friends don't get how we just don't need stuff. We have what we want. They just don't get it. I said you will get to that day. It's like people have to buy brands or products and things like that and buy all these beauty treatments. I've never been someone like that, as you could probably tell. But they have to do this and get their nails done. You just get to a day and you're like, that would be a big waste of money. And as Jan says, just suddenly, I can't say I don't acquire things because I have salvage stuff, but I'm very much, it's like books. I've got two big bookshelves. One of my bookshelves has got lots of DVDs on, so it's not full two bookshelves. They're almost floor to ceiling. And my friend gives me free books. And what I do is I read them. If I think they're really good, I'll read again. I'll put them on my bookshelf. But I've got to get rid of a book to keep a book. There's still someone there that will mind before that I need to do that with. And then the rest I give away. So that's salvage stuff and getting more pots for growing. And people give me plastic trays and things that I can use for that. Each year when I do my growing, I then go through, I've only got the old bird hut or chicken coop, whatever it was, and I've only got that much space. So each year I'll get rid of the older ones or the ones that aren't as good as ones we've salvaged since. So I think you do just get to this day. I don't like paperwork. So I try every now and then to get rid of paperwork. I just dislike files and paperwork and stuff like that. So Yeah, something else good about getting older. Not that I can travel anymore, but there's more places open to travel. I have volunteers come from all around the world here. It's called Workaway, if you don't know about that. And it's like a site where you can go on wherever you are around the world and type in either what country you want to go to or what sort of work you want to volunteer with. And we're on there and we get volunteers from all around the world. That is something, had I been still able to travel and was fit, I would do that. So that didn't exist before. So technology, obviously, YouTube is amazing, and every day something amazing happens. I did talk, Jan, about the letter that I got from you. I talked about that, I think, on my last live on my other channel. And just things like that, that I wouldn't have met any of you wonderful people if it wasn't for YouTube. I know people moan and groan about YouTube, but I don't like a lot of things that occur with it, but I wouldn't be without it. It really has opened doors for me, and I've met so many people. So that's something about getting older. There is some good things that occur that wasn't available before. So I do like the old days, and I'm talking pre my life, but you've got to have the bad that comes with the good things that arrive, like social media and so on and so forth. Okay. Did you ever cry at the cinema? I'm pretty sure I've talked about this before. What is Disney on? My mum took me to Bambi. You'll have to look up what era Bambi was. It must have been the late 60s or very early 70s. I was born 64, so when you figure out what year Bambi was, you'll know how old I was. I can't have been very old. Mum took me to Bambi. You think children, Disney should be fine. And then Bambi's mother gets shot and dies. What is that all about? Anything like that, I just can't abide. Why do you need that? I know there's real life, but you don't need that for entertainment when you're a tiny child. Like Watership Down. I can't watch anything like that. I won't subject myself to it. There's enough sadness out there. I don't want that in entertainment. So, yeah. There's crying, as in sad, for happy things and those lovely endings. It's also lovely, those type of things. Happy sort of crying. But I'm not a blubber of films, but I'd rather not watch anything like that. Okay, let's do one more question. One thing that would brighten up your day is, well, I've just said I get mail. I love getting mail from you guys. I love getting emails. Some of you tell me what you're up to. Shout out to Della Smalley. She's always telling me things she's up to because she doesn't have a channel. Two Doves Bees and Gardens just let me know that they have done a community post showing how their seeds are growing that I sent them, and they've got big peppers. So just connecting, communicating. Hey, we have Glitter World in the house. How are you, my friend? Don't forget to go over to Glitter World and subscribe while you're there. I've just been watching Glitter World, program. I don't know if you know of it. It's made in Canada and it's called Hudson and Rex. Hudson and Rex. Rex is a dog, a police dog, and Hudson is the investigator. And that's made in Newfoundland. And I'm just like, oh. So I'm seeing there's lots of outdoor shots of it. There's this one main place. It's supposed to be set in, oh gosh, what's the place? I've forgotten now. Is it St. John's? St. John's, St. something, St. John's? St. John's, is that right? I don't know. And they've got this bit, I'm assuming it's real, it really is Newfoundland. They've got like the town. Yes, I think of you. We watch it every day and we think of you. They've got houses, all St. John's, oh, I am right. They've got all these pretty colour houses in a row. All pretty colour houses. Is that near you? They show that a lot. All these, like, it's this row of really pretty colour houses. And then the last episode was on a little island near there. I can't remember what they called it. Oh, it's called something, Jelly Bean Row. Cool. I'm thinking of you every time we watch it. It's downtown. Oh, it's called something. I have to tell Mike because he likes watching it. And yeah, they just did the last episode yesterday. It was on an island off of there. I can't remember what they called the island. And they said in the programme, as I say, I don't know what's real and what's not, that there were a few people living there, islanders, and it was all sheep, like sheep farming on there. Fogo Island, I think that was it. That rings a bell. And the story was that they were being given money if they all moved off, and one was resisting, saying he didn't want the money, and the others couldn't have any money to move off. But in the end, I think one of them stayed. I think Fogo Island, that rings a bell. That rings a bell. That definitely rings a bell. Excellent. Yes, I think of you every day, Shirley. I might not have been on your channel, but I am thinking of you every day. Jelly Bean Row. I'm going to have to tell Mike that it's got a name. Bell Island has Canada main iron ore. Interesting. Super. Okay, time's getting on, so let's go on to, I think this will be my last bit of today. So I need to go and do watering, so I might actually leave this running and go and do my watering. And I will see you next Friday, or I will see you on my other channel on my lives. But I will do this now. Okay, so I'm going to leave you.